to go back. He wants to go back. I want to go back to the farm. Go back far away from home, with a milk pail on my arm. I miss the rooster, the one that used to wake me up at 4 a.m. down on the farm.
I'm Scott Boehm. They call me the Old Farmer. Today we're in the kitchen and we're going to try a recipe that sounds mighty interesting, at least to me. John Townsend over at the Townsends, he does things from the 18th and 19th century, and he did a recipe for mushroom ketchup. Well, I really enjoy a good quality ketchup, and I really like mushrooms, so I thought it was worth a try to go ahead and make some mushroom ketchup. He started with fresh mushrooms, and I started with dehydrated mushrooms in chunks and pieces. So the first thing I had to do was reconstitute the mushrooms and get them up to a usable state. And while it was reconstituting, I put in the vinegar and the onion and the horseradish and the herbs and such. Now, after trying the recipe, two things I would like to suggest that unless you're using salt as a preservative for this mushroom ketchup, I would suggest reducing the salt content by 50% and increasing the cider vinegar by twice as much. And I think you're going to balance it out a little bit more. It all depends on when you put the cider vinegar into the recipe. I brought it up and let it bubble for a little bit. And now let's see how it's going to look after being cooked for a little bit. Now, one of the things I noticed was that after cooking it for a little bit, that I had to add a little bit more water to the mushrooms by 50% more to reconstitute the mushrooms, and then I had to cook it down a little bit so it'd come out about the way that it should be for if you wanted to squeeze out the juice. One of the ingredients is bay leaf, and I counted my bay leaf. Always count your bay leaf before you finish your recipe. Make sure you get it out. It's like eating a piece of plastic if you don't get it out. So I put 4 bay leaves in because one of them was a little small. And so I made sure that I pulled 4 bay leaves out afterwards. I wanted to keep it chunky because I thought it would be good on scrambled eggs, steak, meatloaf, even chicken. It should be pretty good on, or added to soup. So I wanted to keep it in a chunky form rather than squeeze it out the way that John did it with his version of the recipe. And of course, I had a little trouble getting all the bay leaf out, but I did. What we wanted to do was, once we had it cooled down, we wanted to put it in jars and freeze it. We kept one jar out for immediate use and froze up the other mason jars. The first batch that we did about 4 jars with it really chunky. And then after filling it up that way, I went through with a hand blender and stuck it in the pot and blended it up a little bit more so it's a little bit more smoother. I couldn't wait anymore. I wanted to see what it tasted like. But it's getting to the point where...
Oh yeah.
Now, John Townsend thought it tasted pretty much like Worcestershire sauce, or close to Worcestershire sauce. I thought it tasted closer to A1 steak sauce. Now we're going to go through and blend it up a little bit, make it a little bit smoother, and fill some more jars afterwards so that we have two different consistencies. Now, if you really wanted to blend it up good, I'd put it in something like a Cuisinart food processor that has the blades in the bottom and it spins rather than like the Oster food blender. If you use a Cuisinart style thing, I think you're going to get a smoother blend on it, and then it might come out closer to what A1 steak sauce in thickness, because A1 puts in thickeners to thicken up their sauce. So we're loading up the sauce that we blended, a few jars this way. We didn't sterilize them. They were washed through the dishwasher, but because we were freezing it, we didn't sterilize them. But one of the jars did seal. Kind of surprised us, but it did. I didn't put them on hard or anything. I just put them on lightly and just tighten it down a little bit to let the air escape. So as I said, I think it's closer to A1 steak sauce than Worcestershire sauce. So let's take a little bit of a look at what they have in their recipe for A1 steak sauce. They put a little tomato puree in, but the important thing to look at is the raisin paste. That is a substitution for the mushrooms. But instead of putting some lemon zest in, they put in some orange puree. So it's pretty doggone close to what the mushroom ketchup is from this recipe. And of course they have xanthan gum and potassium sorbate, which we don't have in ours. So as I said, John Townsend thinks it tastes closer to Worcestershire sauce, and I think it tastes closer to A1 steak sauce. But what I think both of these recipes are, they modified the mushroom ketchup recipe in two different directions. One turned into Worcestershire sauce, the other one turned into A1 steak sauce. But my favorite out there is tiger sauce, so that's just a personal opinion. So at the end of this video, we'll have the recipe up for a screen grab, or you can pull it from down below. Well, this is the old farmer, Scott Bain, saying, be well.
Welcome to 18th Century Cooking. I'm your host, John Townsend. Today we're going to be cooking some amazing beef ribs. Thanks for joining us today as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century.